Have you ever paused to wonder why you keep attracting people who can't meet you halfway, no matter how deeply you care or how much effort you give? Why do so many of us cling tightly to relationships that leave us drained, undervalued, and questioning our own worth? Today on Psychology Insights, we're diving deep into the profound wisdom of Carl Jung, who believed that love is never just about finding the right person. It's about becoming the right person within yourself. In the noise of modern life, where social media constantly pressures us to compare, where loneliness feels heavier than ever, and where we sometimes settle just to avoid feeling alone, it's easy to forget a simple truth. The people we draw into our lives are a reflection of our inner world. Jung taught that the unconscious mind brings forward patterns that mirror what we most need to heal. That means if you repeatedly find yourself with partners who neglect you or take you for granted, it's not just bad luck. It's a signal that something inside you still believes this is what you deserve. But here's the life-changing shift. The moment you love yourself enough to stop accepting crumbs, you raise your standards in every area of life. You no longer chase love you attracted, effortlessly, because you've become whole within. So here's my challenge to you today. Are you ready to break free from old patterns and step into the version of yourself that draws in the love you truly deserve? Stay with me, because in this video, we're unlocking the powerful connection between self-love and the relationships you welcome into your life. And trust me, this is a journey you don't want to miss. Today, I want to invite you into a conversation that goes beyond just the mind. It reaches into the very fabric of who you are, into the silent corners you rarely touch. We often think that love is something we search for out there, somewhere in the world, waiting for us to stumble upon the right person. But what if I told you that the love you experience is not determined by the people you meet, but by the relationship you hold with yourself? Long before Carl Jung and Abraham Maslow explored the depths of human psychology, there was an ancient truth whispered across centuries. You attract not what you want, but who you are inside. Think about your life right now. Have you noticed how easy it is to blame others, to point to their emotional distance, their lack of commitment, their failure to meet your needs, without realizing that often these painful patterns mirror something unresolved within? Jung's work on the unconscious mind teaches us that what shows up repeatedly in our external world is a reflection of the inner landscape we have yet to heal. The shadow, those hidden, suppressed parts of ourselves, isn't something to fear. In fact, it holds the key to why you stay stuck in relationships that leave you feeling small, drained, or invisible. Look closely. How often have you stayed in one-sided or toxic relationships, hoping the other person would finally change, notice you, or love you back the way you need? But here's the deeper reality: this longing isn't really about them. It's a mirror reflecting wounds inside yourself, wounds that say love must be earned, that worth is conditional, that you're only lovable when you sacrifice. Real love, the love that is meant for you, does not demand endless suffering or prove your value games. It comes freely, naturally, expanding who you are, rather than shrinking you. So, as you sit with this message, ask yourself, where are you holding on from fear? Where have you settled for less because you forgot your own worth? Your unconscious is always guiding you, sending you small signals it's time to listen. Because when you love yourself enough, the right people, opportunities, and experiences will meet you exactly where you are, not because you chased them, but because you finally became aligned with the love you were meant to embody all along. Let's take this exploration even deeper. Imagine for a moment that every act of change in your life begins not with action, but with a quiet, internal shift, a moment of recognition where you finally see what has been hidden from you. This is the starting point of true transformation, when you no longer look outward for answers but turn inward with honest awareness. The journey toward attracting the right kind of love begins not when you find the right person, but when you become the kind of person who no longer tolerates being undervalued, overlooked, or diminished. It's not about rejecting others harshly or closing your heart to connection. It's about understanding that your love, your time, your emotional presence are sacred resources, not commodities to be scattered carelessly. When you stop settling for crumbs, something remarkable shifts. You no longer feel desperate for connection, nor do you shrink yourself to fit into places where you were never meant to belong. Instead, you step into a sense of quiet power, the kind of power that comes from deeply knowing who you are. Many people get stuck at this threshold, paralyzed not by love, but by the fear of being alone. Loneliness has a way of magnifying our old wounds, tempting us to return to familiar patterns, even when they hurt. Yet, as Jung's work reminds us, the danger is not in solitude itself, but in living disconnected from our own inner life. You can be surrounded by friends, family, or romantic partners, and still feel profoundly isolated if you lack that core connection to yourself. Conversely, when you cultivate a deep, respectful relationship with your own being, even moments of solitude become sources of strength, not punishment. You stop needing others to prop you up or complete you. You become whole on your own. And from this wholeness, something beautiful happens. Relationships cease to be a desperate need for completion and become a conscious, joyful choice. You choose someone not because you're empty without them, but because their presence enriches a life you already cherish. This is where transformation takes root. The moment you stop dwelling on what's been lost and start opening your eyes to all you've gained. Letting go can feel like one of the hardest decisions you'll ever face. But what if it's not the end, but the exact doorway that leads you toward the life you were always meant to live? Every true rebirth, psychological, emotional, spiritual, comes with discomfort. Leaving behind familiar patterns, even toxic ones, feels risky because it challenges your identity. But the discomfort is temporary. The peace and alignment on the other side are lasting. Every time you continue pouring energy into relationships that no longer reflect your worth, you block the space where healthier connections could enter. Life cannot deliver new, aligned opportunities while you're still clutching the past. Letting go isn't a loss. It's a profound act of trust in yourself. It's the understanding that your love is too precious to waste on those unwilling or unable to cherish it. Real transformation never begins with waiting for others to change. It always begins when you decide to change the story you tell yourself. So rather than waiting for someone to realize your value, begin today by embodying it. When you step fully into your own worth, everything around you shifts. Those who once took your love for granted are confronted by the weight of your absence. But more importantly, you open yourself to the love you are meant to receive, a love that meets you in your wholeness, not your wounds. Now, take a breath with me as we go even deeper. True healing begins the moment you stop abandoning yourself. Think of the wisdom in this. You are not waiting for another person to recognize your worth. You are learning to fully see it yourself. Growth isn't about hoping or begging for someone else to change. It's about stepping into a version of yourself that no longer tolerates relationships misaligned with your truth. When you own your story fully, without shame, you reclaim a kind of bravery that transforms every corner of your life. This journey of self-honoring is not just about walking away from someone who wasn't right for you. It's about stepping into a new chapter of yourself, a chapter where you no longer settle, no longer shrink, no longer compromise your essence for temporary comfort. When you truly align with who you are, life mirrors that love back to you, often in surprising and beautiful ways. Yet, it's important to understand, when you make the decision to let go, your mind may resist. The ego clings tightly to old stories, illusions, and the idea of what could have been. But time alone does not transform people. Transformation happens only when someone chooses it. And if the people in your life have consistently shown they are unwilling to meet you in love and respect, waiting longer only depletes you further. At its root, attachment to painful relationships is rarely just about the other person. It's about the unconscious scripts we carry, the belief that without this relationship, we are somehow incomplete, that our worth is measured by another's validation. But your worth has never been determined by someone else's attention. It has always lived within you, even if you've spent too long searching for it in places where it could never be truly reflected back. The act of letting go, then, becomes the highest form of self-love, the moment you no longer wait for permission to step into your own light. You stop needing someone else to choose you, because you have finally chosen yourself. And when you stand in that truth, your relationships transform, not through force, not through pleading, but through the natural resonance that arises when two whole people meet with mutual respect and intention. In today's world, where we are constantly pressured to compare, to seek external approval, to measure our worth by likes, follows, or someone else's attention, this lesson has never been more important. You have the power right now to stop chasing validation and start embodying your own enoughness. Ask yourself, what am I clinging to out of fear? Where am I delaying my own growth because I'm waiting for someone else to become who I wish they were? You don't have to wait anymore. The truth is, you are the one you've been waiting for all along. And when you fully embrace that, you open the door to a life and a love that honors your most authentic, deserving self. There comes a point on this journey of self-realization when you face a hard but liberating truth. Sometimes, the change you crave does not come from reshaping your circumstances, but from transforming yourself. Viktor Frankl, the remarkable psychiatrist and survivor who explored the meaning of human suffering, once reflected that when we can no longer alter our situation, we are called to change ourselves. This insight touches the heart of today's message. Attracting the right love and the right people is not about manipulating the world outside you. It's about evolving the relationship you hold within. Too often, we waste enormous amounts of energy clinging to what no longer nourishes us, whether it's a relationship that has long stopped feeling safe, a dynamic that demands more than it gives, or a connection that keeps us chasing validation. But here's the profound shift. The moment you reclaim that energy, redirecting it back into your own growth, your own healing, your own truth, something incredible unfolds. Suddenly, your perspective sharpens. You start to recognize just how much of yourself you've been withholding, how many compromises you've made out of fear, how often you've traded pieces of your soul just to preserve what was already slipping away. Carl Jung's idea of synchronicity, the mysterious, meaningful coincidences that unfold when you align with your authentic path, begins to surface here. As you let go, life responds. New people cross your path, unexpected opportunities appear, and events you once labeled as setbacks begin revealing themselves as hidden redirections. But none of this can happen if you remain entangled in the same old scripts, pouring your precious attention into relationships or situations that no longer honor who you are. One of the greatest acts of personal empowerment is the moment you stand up, look at what drains you, and firmly say, enough. Not out of anger or resentment, but from a deep well of self-knowledge and the quiet, unwavering belief that you are worthy of something better. This is where many people falter, mistaking letting go for defeat, believing it's a passive surrender to loss. But here's the truth so often missed. Letting go is not about losing, it's about gaining. You gain space for joy. You gain the freedom to breathe. You gain the clarity to welcome in the love, experiences, and connections that have been waiting just beyond the door you were too afraid to close. And yes, letting go comes with pain, the ache of parting with what you once loved, the sting of saying goodbye to a version of yourself that fought so hard to hold on. But as Jung so wisely pointed out, there is no awakening of consciousness without pain. The pain is temporary. The peace that follows is lasting. In this sacred process, you rediscover something priceless. You realize that you can stand in your own presence and feel whole without needing anyone else to complete you. That you can meet your own gaze in the mirror and no longer search for approval in someone else's eyes. And from this place, everything shifts. You stop accepting mistreatment. You stop tolerating one-sided relationships. You stop letting the fear of loneliness tether you to places where you are unseen and unappreciated. Letting go, at its essence, is not just about releasing another person. It's about releasing the old version of you. The one who believed that love had to be earned through sacrifice. The one who thought their worth was measured by someone else's ability to recognize it. When you choose to let go, you're saying goodbye not to love, but to fear, scarcity, and emotional dependency. You're stepping into the most powerful truth you'll ever know, that you already carry within you everything you need to be whole. And when you stand in that truth, the right people, the right opportunities, the right love will naturally gravitate toward you, not because you forced or chased them, but because your energy has aligned with what you truly deserve. So today, ask yourself, what am I still gripping that no longer supports my growth? What version of myself am I finally ready to outgrow? And can I, today, make the radical decision to stop waiting for others to change and instead claim my own power? Because when you do, everything around you begins to transform. Let's take this even further. Carl Rogers, a foundational figure in humanistic psychology, once observed a paradox that cuts to the core of our journey. Only when we fully accept ourselves as we are can we begin to change. This truth offers the key to what you've been seeking all along. Loving yourself deeply isn't about standing in front of a mirror, reciting affirmations, or clinging to temporary boosts of confidence. It's about stepping into a life shaped by choices, grounded in self-respect and clarity. Jung reminds us that the most important relationship you will ever have is not with a partner, friend, or family member. It's the one you cultivate with your own inner being. When that internal relationship is built on authenticity, honesty, and unconditional self-value, you stop chasing love like a thirsty wanderer in the desert. You stop begging for approval, attention, or validation. You understand, on a bone-deep level, that what is truly aligned with your spirit will never require you to chase it, because what belongs to you arrives naturally, not through struggle, but through resonance. This journey of transformation is not surrender or defeat. It's a rebirth. It's a crossing over from scarcity into abundance, from desperation into strength. Letting go becomes an act of courage, a statement that you trust you deserve more, even if stepping into the unknown feels terrifying. And when you finally choose to close the door on what has been hurting you, you'll notice something extraordinary. The emotional weight you've been carrying, the anxiety, the longing, the exhausting hope that someone might change lifts. You realize you were never bound by the relationship itself. You were bound by the belief that without it, you were somehow incomplete. Here's the deeper truth. When you release what no longer aligns with your worth, you create sacred space for what truly honors you. Letting go is, at its heart, an act of faith. Faith in yourself, in the rhythms of life, and in the knowing that what is meant for you will never need to be forced. But to welcome this, you must first summon the strength to close the chapters that no longer nourish you. Jung's concept of individuation speaks to this exact process, the integration of every part of yourself, light and shadow alike, so you can move forward not from fear, but from conscious, embodied trust. Every ending holds a hidden invitation. When a relationship ends, when a chapter closes, when a familiar dynamic falls away, life is offering you a sacred pause, a moment to reflect, to ask, what lesson am I meant to carry forward? What pattern is ready to be broken? What new version of myself am I stepping into? And as you reflect, you'll discover something transformative. Your worth has never depended on anyone else's recognition. It has always lived within you. So today, take this as your invitation to stand fully in your own worth. Release what no longer serves you, and trust that when you align with the truth of who you are, the right love, the right opportunities, the right life will meet you not through force, but through the effortless magnetism of a soul that has learned to honor itself completely. There's a profound moment in every personal journey when you realize that love is not something to be wrestled from the hands of others. It's something you cultivate inside yourself first. While past disappointments may have convinced you that you need to work harder to earn love, the truth is far simpler yet more powerful. The love you attract is a mirror of the love you already give yourself. This isn't about blaming those who didn't see your worth, or shaming yourself for staying in situations that hurt you. It's about awakening to the deeper truth behind every experience. Each heartache, each rejection, each moment of unmet need carries a hidden message, gently pointing you back to your own growth. Perhaps the reason you keep encountering the same frustrations is that you haven't yet strengthened your boundaries, Maybe you've been reaching for validation in places that were never meant to provide it. Or perhaps you've been carrying old, unhealed wounds that need your attention before you can fully receive the kind of love you long for. Resisting the truth doesn't preserve love, it prolongs pain. When you cling to fantasies of what could have been, hoping your efforts will eventually turn things around, you lock yourself in a pattern where love becomes a battle rather than a gift. The reality is that love was never meant to feel like constant struggle. It's not supposed to drain you, demand that you prove yourself, or make you feel small. If someone cannot meet you with mutual respect and commitment, that is not an indictment of your worth. It's simply a sign that they are not meant to walk this part of your journey with you, and that's okay. Not every person is meant to stay forever, and learning to release those who cannot meet you where you are is a profound act of freedom. But the real question isn't about them. It's about you. What will you do with this truth? Will you keep waiting, explaining away the gaps, pretending things will change? Or will you honor yourself enough to step away from what drains you, creating space for something healthier, richer, and more aligned? Loneliness isn't the absence of people. It's the absence of authentic connection, especially the connection you hold with yourself. There are many who appear surrounded by love, but feel deeply empty inside because they are disconnected from their own essence. Rebuilding that connection within is the only way to fill that inner void. When you let go of relationships that no longer serve you, you send a powerful message to your subconscious. I trust myself. I choose myself. I no longer need to hold on to what diminishes me just to feel whole. And the moment you make that decision, life responds. Your external world begins to reflect the strength, confidence, and self-worth you radiate. When you operate from scarcity, you attract more scarcity. But when you stand firmly in your sense of worth, you begin to draw in people, experiences, and opportunities that resonate with your newfound energy. At its heart, love is not about sacrifice or shrinking yourself to keep someone else comfortable. It's not about bending or twisting who you are just to hold on to connection. True love is expansive, supportive, and allows you to stand fully as yourself without fear of being too much or not enough. If you've ever found yourself dimming your light to be accepted, or pouring endlessly into a relationship without receiving the same in return, understand this. It's not a sign to try harder. It's a sign to let go. But letting go doesn't mean blaming the other person or drowning in resentment. It's about recognizing that what lies ahead can be far greater than what you're leaving behind if you have the courage to release. Jung teaches us that our unconscious mind is always whispering to us, sending subtle signals, urging us to grow, to awaken, to realign. Too often, we ignore those whispers, convincing ourselves that if we just wait a little longer, things will improve. But the most profound act of love you can offer yourself is to listen to that wisdom and to step forward with the faith that when you align with your truth, life will mirror it back in ways you never imagined. Now, pause with me for a moment and consider a quiet truth, one beautifully captured by Carl Jung when he said, "What I am is good enough, if I would only be it openly." This idea invites us to explore the most intimate relationship we have, the one we hold with ourselves. How often have you felt the quiet tug inside, the whisper that something was off, that a relationship or situation was no longer aligned with your deepest needs? And how often have you ignored it, hoping that time would smooth things over or that circumstances would magically shift? That whisper is your intuition, your deeper self, calling you to pay attention. And while it's natural to resist, there always comes a moment when you can no longer look away. Facing the truth is never easy. It comes with sadness, with longing, with the ache of letting go. But clinging to what was to the past, to the idealized versions of people, to the fantasy of what could have been only traps you in illusion. The real power lies not in holding on to what's slipping away, but in focusing on what you can create, starting today. Letting go isn't about erasing the past or pretending it didn't matter. It's about choosing peace over struggle, clarity over confusion, and self-honoring over emotional depletion. While the pain of loss may feel sharp in the moment, the liberation that follows is enduring, and it opens the door to something far greater. When you look back on your life, you'll notice a pattern. Every time you release someone or something that no longer aligned with your soul, something better eventually emerged. Maybe not immediately, and maybe only after you walked through a period of discomfort and rebuilding, but ultimately, every ending carried you closer to your own truth. This moment you face now is no exception. With time, clarity will return. You will rediscover your inner balance and stand in the quiet, steady knowing that you made the right choice, not because the other person changed, but because you chose to honor yourself. What's essential here is trust. Trust in your own judgment, in your intuition, and in the deeper truth that what is meant for you will never demand you to sacrifice your worth. In today's fast-moving world, where it's so easy to get swept away by comparisons, external approval, and the noise of other people's expectations, nurturing this kind of trust is more important than ever. It's what empowers you to close the doors that no longer nourish you and to open yourself to the life you truly deserve. And here's the most beautiful part. When you finally release what does not value you, when you stop pouring your precious energy into relationships that drain you, something within you shifts permanently. The peace you were chasing from others, the validation you longed for, the hope that someone would change, all of that begins to rise from within. You realize that you never needed anyone else's permission to feel whole, because wholeness was never an external gift. It was always the love, respect, and acceptance you learned to offer yourself. And in that realization, perhaps more clearly than ever, you come to understand Jung's timeless truth. Every relationship we experience is ultimately a reflection of the one we hold with ourselves. If you've been clinging to someone who fails to see your value, it's a sign that, at some level, you haven't fully embraced your own worth. But here's the good news. With this new awareness, you no longer need to stay stuck. You are ready not because you need someone else to complete you, but because you have already completed something essential within yourself. And from this space of inner fullness, you will no longer have to chase the right person. They will be drawn to you naturally, as a mirror of the love, strength, and wholeness you have finally claimed as your own. As we reach the close of this journey here on X, I want to leave you with a simple but life-changing reminder. The love you've been searching for outside has always been waiting inside you. When you love yourself fully, without condition, without waiting for someone else's approval, you stop chasing relationships that drain you and start attracting connections that truly nourish you. Every small choice you make matters. Each time you set a boundary, honor your feelings, or walk away from something that no longer reflects your worth, you are stepping deeper into the authentic, abundant life you are meant to live. If today's message touched something in your heart, I invite you to share this video with someone who might need to hear it, because so many people are still clinging to relationships or stories that hold them back, not realizing they have the power to choose themselves. And I would love to hear from you in the comments. What part of this message resonated the most with you? What is one shift you're ready to make in your life today, for the sake of your own growth and peace? Let's build a space here where we lift each other up, where we remind each other that self-love is not selfish, but the foundation for everything beautiful we create in this world. Make sure you subscribe to Psychology Insights so you won't miss the next video. Because this journey of transformation doesn't stop here. It's only just beginning. So, I'll leave you with this. Are you ready to stop waiting for someone else to choose you and start powerfully choosing yourself? I can't wait to hear your reflections and walk this path together with you in the next episode.